Guys, if you've been following the news, you probably would have seen already that the UK retailer put a price or a placeholder price for the Nintendo NX at £350. Now, what does this mean? I'm guessing this is just a placeholder. Like, it looks to me like it's a placeholder, but you never know. Like, it might actually be like, because they supposedly went to Germany for a Nintendo convention where Nintendo revealed like information about the NX maybe to them. So if this is the case, they might have already an idea of what the system will cost. However, keep in mind something very important. Like, this is probably a placeholder price since they already taken it down since it got a lot of attention. And many companies do that, so they're just guessing what the price might be. And this is similar to like the same price the Nintendo Wii U was, so they probably just put the Nintendo Wii U price on there. However, what I wanted to talk about in this video is like, what if that was the price? Well, £350 is kind of over $400, but usually when a system in the UK costs £350, it costs $400 in the US. So if the system costs $400 on release, Nintendo has a lot of explaining to do. Like, they just do. Like, that's not going to be a good price. People are already, like, thinking it is going to be $400, and they've already lost all hype. Like, instantaneously, like, they lost all interest in the system. And that's not good. Like, Nintendo, I'm guessing, has already learned from the Nintendo Wii U release and from the 3DS release that they can't overprice this. Especially if it's underpowered. The only way people will pay $400 upon release if it's overpowered, like even over the PlayStation 4 Pro power, and it has a decent selection of games. Like, that's the other selling point. Like, it really needs to be a whole generation leap from the PlayStation 4 Pro at the moment in order for anyone to consider this as a worthy investment. And it's not going to be that. It's impossible. So, like, the Nintendo Wii U, for instance, didn't sell because another fact was, like, people went to the store and they were thinking, like, should I buy a Wii U that has the same power as the PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360, maybe slightly better, but it'll look kind of the same? Or should I buy a PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360 and play tons of games for cheap at this moment? Many people went with the other option, buy a PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360 and play tons of cheap games, which were already cheap at that time since they were going to get replaced and they already had tons of games. The Wii U needed to build a ton of, like, a whole library of games at that time. They had nothing. And that was one problem with them. You can't keep releasing an underpowered system and hope for success like they did with the Wii. The reason for this was because the Wii was different. And the Wii was, like, a sensation because they had a good idea. And then people wanted to try that and they wanted it for themselves. And the graphics weren't that drastic or anything. Like, it was, like, really underpowered, but it's still sold based on that idea. But the Wii U didn't have such an idea. I personally, I believe the Wii U would have had more success had it just been a Wii with higher definition graphics. And on top of that, I still think, like, in order for the Wii would have been more successful for Nintendo, it would have built Nintendo's reputation more if it had PlayStation 3 level graphics or Xbox 360. And it had motion controls at the same time. They could have even released it for the same price as a PlayStation 3, or not PlayStation 3, because that's a killer price, and I'll talk about that now. But at the same price as the Xbox 360, and they would have had, like, the market even to today. Like, they would have been like Apple, where they went from the 80s or 90s, where they all crashed, and come back with great, like, success. And Nintendo could have done that, but they didn't. They chose to kind of make their reputation like where they'll release underpowered systems with a good idea for people. And this is not good for a lot of people because the reason is like the reputation matters, and people don't like buying or paying more for less, and people don't like the idea of being stuck kind of in the past. So, like, the having these underpowered systems is, although if it's something that you gotta try and you gotta own because it's kind of neat, then they will. Like, if you release VR maybe for $200 or something, a lot of people would buy it and they might enjoy it for, like, whatever seconds, but they won't use it after that necessarily that much, especially not all the people that bought it. But still, it's not so overpriced that it kills you, so, like, it's not a big deal. But Nintendo could have built a much better reputation. Maybe they would have sold less Wiis, but overall they would have sold more, and more Wii U's and more Wiis had they made the system more overpowered. At least I think. And I think other people do too as well. But anyways, if the NX comes out and it costs $400, this is the same Nintendo Wii U mistake where they release a system that's way over, like, underpowered, it has a nice idea. It's great. Like if you own it, it's probably great, but it's not necessarily worth the investment, especially not for a lot of people. Because like you're talking about releasing a system mid-generation, even though you can say like the PlayStation 4 Pro kind of is a new generation or whatever. No, not many people consider it because like you can still play the same game, so it's kind of still the same generation. So if you have a system that's underpowered and it has a small library of games and it's more underpowered than the other system on the market, and it basically has, like I said, no games. Like it's not a tough choice for many people to buy like the cheaper system that's more overpowered and plays more games than it is to buy the on the power system. Even if it has that advantage where you can take it out, for instance, people would rather buy a 3DS for like those to play games outside and then play their console games at home than have a system that's like a hybrid that turns into a console at home and then you can take it out, but it's underpowered. No one wants to pay $400 for that. Like that's not some luxury anymore. It totally would destroy the system. This system needs to be, I would say, at least Wii U level power and be just a handheld. And it has to be cheap. It really has to be cheap. Like if you cross, I think even the 250 point, you're kind of already inching to failure. Like, and I would say like the best you can do is price it at $199. You'll sell tons. Like it'll be sold out for months and months and months. But if you price it at $300, you're already kind of getting into that iffy zone. And if you price it at $400, you're asking for almost believable disaster. Like you really need to be careful. Like Nintendo really needs to be careful. Like it's almost like video game companies don't learn. Like this is the same problem with the Atari Jaguar when it came out. I know like no one wanted that system anyways, but still like you can't release such an overpriced system mid-generation. People are already happy with what they have. Like you need to give them an incentive to come into your game or whatever you're offering. Like people aren't gonna accept something that costs too much. Like they're not gonna switch. There's no way they're not gonna buy it. That's pretty much it. Like even if they have the money, like I hear this argument all the time, like but people pay like $700 every year for a smartphone. Why can't they do it for a game system? Basically because they're two different things. Like you don't need, like people need smartphones. At least nowadays people believe they need smartphones. And it's like a status symbol. Like a fancy handbag or a fancy car or something. So you need it people buy it for that specific reason. And I don't know why the reason for that is. Like, there's other reasons. Like, some people, it's because it makes them look better. They think like they'll make more money, maybe, because they have a better status symbol, so they'll get promoted and stuff. Like, they don't want to look like shit, basically. But video game systems aren't that social. Like, yeah, they have like the internet on it and stuff like that, and they're social events, but they're not like that. They're still considered kind of geeky things. Like, they're still not super mainstream, even though they're getting there. They're not like, people don't look at a 30-year-old man who plays video games as like success necessarily. They kind of tend to look at them like losers, even nowadays. But even though that's not the case, like I know no one thinks you're a loser if you're playing video games. Like that's not true, because I would do that too. And I've seen many 30-year-olds that do it as well. Like it's just the thing people do nowadays. But it's still an entertainment thing. And people aren't willing to overpay for their entertainment. It's not necessary. Many people believe smartphones are necessary. So people will pay every year for that upgrade. It's totally different concept. Anyways, point being is that they can't get too, like, basically they can't get ahead of themselves. If they want this to sell, like, they need to price it reasonably. And it needs to be around, I would say $200 would be probably the best price for it. However, if it's $250, it's still fine. But once you get to $300 or even close to $400, it's kind of bad territory for them to be at. Anyways, I'm guessing they've already learned. Come on, because like they already had their disaster with, like, not disaster, but they didn't sell as many with the 3DS and the Wii U, so like they want to be more successful. So I'm pretty sure Nintendo's learning. This is just a placeholder price, so no need to get worried at the moment. But just keep a lookout for that. Like it might be that expensive, and if it is, again, I would say wait maybe on getting the Nintendo NX, because like you don't want to be like again stuck in another system where later, like 2 months later, like they decrease the price and then they give you some, not so worth it reward, like some free games, like for the virtual console or something. Like that's not something worth it in my opinion. So I would say wait if that's the case, and wait for a price reduction and then buy it. But other than that, I mean, I love Nintendo, so I'm gonna probably buy this, especially when it comes out, because I did it already with the Nintendo Wii U, so I'll do it probably again. But anyways, that's all I wanted to say. Like, I hope you guys have a good day, and I'm signing out. Bye, guys.